FPL Game Week 38. It is the final week of the season. It is the final transfer plans video of FPL 2024-2025. I've got just one free transfer. We're looking at targeting specific fixtures going up against weak sides with nothing to play for. We'll talk about some potential rotation roys. We'll talk about what you should be doing, whether you're chasing, whether you're protecting, and what potential chips you might have to play, because about 10% of active players still have a chip to play in Game Week 38 as well. We'll talk about captaincy, we'll talk about benchings, we'll talk of all of that in Game Week 38, my first transfer plans. What is up, everyone? FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here. It's the final week of the season. I've got one free transfer left to use. I'm almost certain I will not use more than one transfer. And we are here. Now, I'm recording, of course, after all the games have finished on Sunday. We have Liverpool to play on Monday night, where I have Mo Salah, but his ownership is almost bang on. I think it's 101%. So his points basically do nothing good or bad for my rank. And then on Tuesday, there is a lot to go. I still have 4 players to play on Tuesday night in Munoz and Sarr, who have won the FA Cup. And I'm a little bit uncertain about whether they're going to start. I do expect them to be in the squad, and they'll probably come on if they don't start, but you never know. And I'm getting a little bit uncertain on that. I also have 2 players from Manchester City in Gvardiol and Kevin De Bruyne. Gvardiol, I'm almost certain will start. Kevin De Bruyne, I'm a little bit uncertain. Of course, they lost the FA Cup final, so they still have loads of motivation, and they will have just been in training because they probably have to win both of their remaining Premier League matches now if they want to finish in a Champions League spot. So 2 really big games to go on Tuesday and a Monday night game, which might be just enjoyable as a watch, given that there isn't much FPL ownership apart from Salah, unless you might own a Conor Bradley or punted on someone like a Danny Welbeck or a João Pedro or something like that. So rank on the screen is still TBC. I started Game Week 37 with 7,777 as my rank. I am now just about inside the top 7k. So I am on a green arrow at the moment. Many thanks to Ezri Konsa's goal and a no-show from Alexander Isak. Now, let me know in the comments, who did you get off your bench for Alexander Isak? I'm really interested to try and work out how bad that was for my rank, because I am seeing quite a lot of people get players like Eze, for example. Some people are getting Konsa, some people are getting Forest defenders who did all right, like Milenkovic, who did score. I did bench Milenkovic this week and Williams, so Milenkovic goal wiped out by a Bowen goal was, didn't feel great. But anyway, let's have a look at Game Week 38, and we will review how Game Week 37 goes in conclusion once we get to the team selection video, which will probably be Thursday. It might actually be Friday this week because we don't have a deadline until Sunday, when all of the Game Week 38 matches play at the same time. So a reminder of that, the Game Week 38 deadline is on Sunday. All the matches in the UK kick off at the same time, 4 o'clock, which means the deadline will be 2:30 p.m. UK time on the Sunday. We will have the usual deadline stream for 2 hours going into that. There are some really nice fixtures. There are also some fixtures which are very important for the Premier League table, and there are also some fixtures which are not so relevant for the table, but are maybe more important from an FPL point of view. I'm looking at Arsenal away at Southampton as an example, Bournemouth at home to Leicester, for example. But what is interesting is a lot of teams that we're invested in actually do have something to play for. It is still possible that 8th place in the Premier League ends up with European football. So Bournemouth, Brentford, Fulham, Brighton still have points and potential to go. If Brighton don't beat Liverpool, then there are 4 teams who can still finish in that 8th spot. Plus you have all the teams chasing Champions League football. You've got Manchester City, you've got Newcastle after they lost to Arsenal today. You've got Chelsea going up against Nottingham Forest. You've got Aston Villa in there as well. So there is a lot to play for in the Premier League going on the final day, which means we might hope that there isn't quite as much rotation as there possibly could be. Looking at what that means for my team, I've got David Raya in goal, and I actually have the double up on Arsenal with Saka. I am worried a little bit that both of these could be a little bit of a rotation threat. We could see Neto, in theory, get a game for Arsenal in goal. Saka did come off after 75 minutes. He hasn't looked great recently. So I've got them both. It's a good fixture. But I am worried a little bit that Arsenal might rotate in this fixture. Gvardiol and Kevin De Bruyne go away to Fulham. Again, a game that they will have to win if they want Champions League football. So that remains a really big, very important game for Manchester City. Whether Kevin De Bruyne starts or not 100% certain. We'll talk about some potential replacements if we get news going into the deadline that he isn't going to start. And I think it's worth saying that at this point, I'm not going to make any transfer until probably the deadline is 2:30, until probably 2:20 on Sunday. All the games kick off at the same time in game week 38. We often get quite a lot of team news. Now, do be careful because there are always lots of people who try and chant and guess from lots of clubs. So we'll be needing to keep an eye on what's reliable team news. But knowing whether a player or not is going to start, you don't need to chase price changes going into game week 38. You don't need to worry about your team value anymore. So realistically, no one should be making a transfer unless you are 100% certain you're going to do a move and you are definitely going to get priced out, in which case you might want to consider it. But even then, I don't think it's worth going early. I'd rather just wait until we get some potential news going into the game week 38 deadline. Kevin De Bruyne is the one I'm probably most worried about, along with Bukayo Saka in my starting 11. Fulham away is a big game though, and of course they need to win. Saka, I've held for this fixture. I think I've just got to hope he starts. We will talk about some midfield replacements if he doesn't. Brian Mbeumo and Brentford losing to Fulham means they almost certainly have to win on the final day of the season if they want a chance to finishing 8th. Of course, this all does depend on what Brighton do against Liverpool on Monday night, because if Brighton beat Liverpool, they will go up the table, of course. I've got Mbeumo, I've got Wissa, pretty happy with them in that fixture. Then it is Mo Salah, who's actually currently got my captaincy armband, just because I'm not certain that Saka is going to start. His minutes don't feel fully reliable, and Arsenal haven't looked that great going forward. Now, Kai Havertz back in the team could be a little bit of a boost to Arsenal and to Saka if he does start, but I don't think I've got enough confidence on Saka. Not that many people own him at the moment, although I am expecting him to be very popular. But Salah is in and he's currently got the captaincy armband. The final home game of the season, yes, they've been on holiday. Yes, they've not been training. Yes, they've not been playing that well recently, but it's the final home game where they get the Premier League trophy. He is, of course, still chasing records like goal involvements, like assists as well. And they'll want to put on a show for the final game of the season. So I'm pretty happy with Salah. And I'm not chasing rank. We'll talk about chasing versus protecting in a moment. If I was protecting, Salah is a good option. But if I was chasing, I might look to chance it on someone like a Saka or Evan Nilsson in my lineup. Then up front, Ollie Watkins and Evan Nilsson. Of course, Watkins came in for Alexander Isak. We'll talk about Isak later on in this video as well. It went okay. I don't mind it. I actually hope that Manchester United win the Europa League final from a Watkins and Ezri Konsa point of view, because Man United will not care about that game on that Sunday if they win the Europa League final. If they don't win, they might want to try and finish the season on a little bit of a bounce. But of course, Villa need to win if they want to get a Champions League spot. And it's even not guaranteed, even if they do. So Watkins and Konsa, I'm pretty happy with the fixture. And Evan Nilsson at home to Leicester. Again, Bournemouth might still have something to play for depending on how the games go over the next couple of days as well. Sarah's on the bench and I'm benching double Forest at the moment. I'm a little bit uncertain on whether I want to bench double Forest or I want to bench Munoz. I am a Chelsea fan and part of me just wants to go into game week 38 with 9 fixtures relevant from an FPL point of view and then Forest Chelsea just completely irrelevant, because that is such a big game for Chelsea in chasing the Champions League spot that I don't even want 1% of me to be thinking about FPL in that match. So at the moment, I've got double Forest on my bench. I'm starting Munoz away at Liverpool, but I might end up making a defensive transfer. Sarah on my bench is first bench cover. I actually think there'll be quite a lot of goals in Crystal Palace Liverpool. Think it might be quite an end-to-end game with not that much to play for. Palace might rotate. Liverpool, of course, their final home game. So Sarah's on the bench. Areola has Ipswich. Again, I think Fabianski might get a game. I'm hoping that one of Raya or Areola will start. I think there's a bit of a chance that one of them doesn't start, and there's a small chance that neither of them do, given that they're both away games. Fabianski could start, but if Fabianski will start, surely it would be their home game. So I'm hopeful that I get one of them. So this is how the team is lining up at the moment. I'm pretty happy, and part of the reason for taking the -8 going into game week 36 was my front 7 looks pretty good. Disclaimer, if someone gets benched, it doesn't look good. But if everyone was to start, I'm pretty happy with Salah and Mbeumo, Saka, De Bruyne, Wissa, Watkins, Evan Nilsson. Defensively, it does look fragile. Everyone's got Gvardiol, so that doesn't really matter. Everyone's got an Arsenal defender, so Raya is fine. It's Munoz and Konsa. Konsa has been great. They look great defensively at the moment, so I don't mind playing him. That probably 11th spot, plus any rotation in my midfield or forward line, is probably where I'm looking to make a transfer. I'm almost certain I'm not going to take a hit unless 2 of my attackers were to get benched, but even in that case, I think I'd probably just chance it and play Ismail Assar. De Bruyne is probably the one I'm most worried about, but also the one we're most likely to get news on going into the deadline for game week 38 as well. So looking at my team, I'm not going to make a goalkeeper transfer. I'm not going to make a forward transfer as well. Even if for some reason we got news that Wissa wasn't going to start, Watkins wasn't, or for example, Evan Nielsen wasn't going to start at Bournemouth, I still don't think I'd make a forward transfer unless it was Watkins, because the only forward I don't have that I think I'd want is Alexander Isak, pending that he's okay going into that fixture, which I think he probably will be. But unless I can get to Isak, I don't love them, and I'd probably rather sell Ismail Assar in my midfield and play a 3-5-2. So I don't really have many forwards that I'm looking to buy. I think Evan Nielsen is the obvious one at home to Leicester. If you're looking to buy, Wissa still feels like a good buy as well. So a lot of my options. Now, later on in the week, when we do transfer targets, we will talk about goalkeepers, more midfielders, more defenders, more forwards to buy. But in terms of my team, in defense, I could look at Ben White. Now, the update on Saliba is going to be a big part of whether I look to buy an Arsenal defender or not, because the ownership of an Arsenal defender at the moment is about 140%, but 40% of that is Saliba. So basically the net ownership is 100 if Saliba isn't going to play. And I might just write that off and just be happy with Raya. There'll be lots of Rayas. There'll be a few Kiviors and stuff like that. But if Saliba is going to play and I'm going up against 140, 150% Arsenal defense, then suddenly I like Ben White to try and go and double up on it, because I do like it as a fixture away at Southampton. A few of the other options that I like would be going to Kirkes, adding another Bournemouth player at home to Leicester. That is surely one of the fixtures we look to target. Or I go to Newcastle. Newcastle have to win on the final day. It's a great home fixture against Everton. I don't, of course, have Alexander Isak. So part of me would just think, well, buy a Newcastle player against Everton and have some sort of fixture, some sort of player in that fixture. So White is the one I like at the moment, and I can get to him. Kirkes feels very attacking, but feels like a nice differential, which I don't know if I need. And Livramento might be the safest, boring option, but he's also the cheapest as well. Into midfield, if, for example, Kevin De Bruyne was not going to start, I'd almost certainly buy Jared Bowen. He has killed my rank over the past few weeks. Non-stop returns, non-stop points every single week. Didn't do anything against Nottingham Forest, and they make one defensive mistake, and he buries it into the top corner. So, yeah, if Kevin De Bruyne or Saka wasn't going to play, I would go to Jared Bowen just because I know how high his ownership is, and I am playing defensively in Gameweek 38. If, for example, one of my forwards got benched, or I didn't have the money to go to Bowen, and I was selling Ismail Assar, for example, Kluivert, Semenyo are good options. I probably would go Kluivert. He's on some set pieces. Of course, he's on penalties as well. I just prefer that over Semenyo for a 1 week punt. Or I could look elsewhere at Arsenal. Martinelli and Trossard both had good games. They do have a nice fixture away at Southampton. He feels like a differential though. Of course, if I've got Saka, I'm not sure I need the double up. He's one I'm looking at, but I think I'd go Bowen or Kluivert depending on the money I had to spend. So to talk a bit more broadly about Game Week 38, let's start off by having a look at the fixtures ranked. So, of course, there are the team that we have quite a lot of investment in Crystal Palace right at the bottom. But in terms of players that you might be looking to buy this week, Arsenal, Bournemouth, West Ham, Newcastle, probably the ones right up there that we're looking to target. Also, if you want to buy some players from teams who have something to play for example, if we got a leak that someone at Manchester City started that you want to punt there, Wolves at home to Brentford could be a nice option. You could also have a look at Aston Villa away at Manchester United if Manchester United were to win the Europa League final. But it does feel like Arsenal, Bournemouth, West Ham, Newcastle, probably where most of the transfers are going to be this week, and will have the highest predicted goals and clean sheets going into game week 38. It does really depend on whether you're chasing and whether you're protecting. It's going to be very difficult to recommend transfers for everyone this week. So you do need to take a little bit of what's being presented on my channel, wherever you're watching, wherever you're reading or listening to, about what you need from game week 38. Because if you are 10 points behind your mini league rival, you need to do something very, very different in game week 38 than if you're 10 points ahead of your rival. Similarly, if you're 10 points chasing rank, 10 points, protecting rank, you need to do very, very different things this week. Jared Bowen, for example, is a great differential captain. Buying Bukayo Saka and captaining him are really good options if you're chasing, going for a Bournemouth midfielder, trying to find something a little bit different to what the majority of people are going to do. Putting your captaincy on someone a little bit different is something you'll be needing to do if you're chasing rank. But if you're protecting rank, looking at what your rivals got, looking at who the highly owned players are, is going to be much more important than maybe trying to do something a little bit more exciting. Now, there might be some of you who are doing neither of these and you just want to have a little bit of fun on the final day, and that is absolutely fine as well. But when you're listening to sort of players we're talking about, who I'm buying, who I'm looking at, I am very much in a protecting rank situation. If you're in a chasing rank situation, you might need to be thinking a little bit differently. So talking a little bit about chips, because I know about 10% of you still have it left to play. If you're on the assistant manager, it does look like Wolves will have table bonus at home to Brentford in game week 38. If you're looking for table bonus, from what I can see, this is probably the best option. You could punt on one of the sides going down, playing at home, but I don't really like that. Wolves, let's see how they get on Tuesday night. Of course, let's confirm the Premier League table once we've got Brighton and Wolves playing, which could change the way that the Premier League is ordered. But at the moment, they currently do have table bonus at home to Brentford. If you're chasing rank, could be a really nice one to look at. Then we're looking at more safer options, and it probably is Arteta and Arsenal. It probably is Iraola and Bournemouth if you're looking to play it safe. If not, you could just keep the manager. If you went for a West Ham manager, if you went for Potter, if you went for a Pep Guardiola, you could just keep it on them going into game week 38, of course, as well. Free hit or wildcard, which effectively are the same now. You basically get to pick a team for 1 week. We're not going to discuss it loads in this video. It will probably have triple Arsenal, triple Bournemouth, probably Jared Bowen. You've probably got a couple of Newcastle in there as well, and maybe 1 or 2 others. We will talk about it in a specific video, which will be out Tuesday or Wednesday morning this week. We'll do a full video on it. We'll talk about a safe draft. We'll talk about a punty draft. We'll talk about how you should be setting up and all of that good stuff. So we won't do it too much in this video. We will have a specific video out, but it will be looking to target lots of those players up at the top of the fixture ticker. If you've still got the triple captain left, Mo Salah will be the safe option. You can also have a look at the likes of Brian and Burmo as a safe option, and Alexander Isak if he is going to be available as well. If you're looking to chase, Saka, Jared Bowen, or one of the Bournemouth players in Evan Nilsson or Kluivert are probably the ones that you go to have a look at. If you've got the bench boost, yes, you play it. There's no other week to play it. Even if you've got one available player on your bench in game week 38, you need to be playing your bench boost. I wouldn't be looking to take a -4 to improve your bench unless you have players who are definitely not going to play. And even then, I'm not sure I'd be taking a -8 or 12 to fix your bench. Maybe one -4 if you want to bring in someone from a Bournemouth or an Arsenal with a great fixture. But I wouldn't be taking, a -8, -12 to fix the bench boost, because then your bench has to score that many points to cancel it out. A few specific questions going into game week 38 for the early questions submitted on Twitter and YouTube. Thank you all for your engagement and your comments and everything as well over the course of the season. Isak and Saliba both flagged at the moment in the game going into game week 38. Alexander Isak did not feature for Newcastle. Apparently, he is still managing that groin injury. He went for a scan on Sunday morning to see the severity of it as he felt it in training on Saturday. Personally, my opinion is Newcastle have looked at it and gone, we need one win from the final 2 games to get Champions League football. Let's not risk him, because it does sound like there is an ongoing issue with Alexander Isak. That then they were like, let's not risk him against Arsenal, which actually I think if they'd have risked him, Arsenal were there for the taking. They definitely could have won that game if it wasn't for David Raya, although David Raya did give them the ball a few times. I think they've looked at it and think, let's save him. We win at home on the final day, at home to Everton, and we'll be in the Champions League. So I fully expect Alexander Isak to be back and available. But let's, of course, wait for the press conference later on in the week. But we don't really get that much information. We might get something in terms of travelling squad, arriving squad going into game week 38 as well. The other one is Saliba. So he felt his hamstring in the first half of that game against Newcastle. There's no way he would have been taken off if it wasn't, something of a risk to Saliba and the longevity of the injury. I'm a little bit more skeptical about whether Saliba will be available to play. Now, if he's available, he probably does start away at Southampton just because he plays so many minutes for them. But if there's any doubt that they could make the injury worse, I think they might leave Saliba out because they're guaranteed second now, basically. So why risk it if you don't have to? So Isak, I think, will start. Saliba, I'm not sure he will. In terms of teams to target, we did look at the fixture ticker. So it's Arsenal, Bournemouth, West Ham, Newcastle, really with the fixture that they do have. If we got a leak of someone at Liverpool, for example, or another team that you really fancied, you could go to it. Plus, of course, the team playing the winner of the Europa League final as well. And finally, is anything really worth a -4? Statistically, not really. Unless you've got a player who's not going to start. In terms of data, if you're looking at predicted points, the chance of there being 4-point split between 2 players in a single game week is very unlikely. So if we look back at my team as an example, if I don't have enough transfers, if Saka and De Bruyne both get benched, I don't think it's worth selling one of them for a hit. I would rather just play Saar, who's on my bench, because I don't think there's enough difference between them. Now, if you're trying to do something a little bit different, you're selling two players with a bad fixture. For example, if you wanted to get rid of Cole Palmer to buy Saka, or you wanted to get rid of a cheaper midfielder to go up to Saka, but in order to free up the money, you want to do a expensive forward down to an Evan Nilsson and do two transfers to get Saka and Evan Nilsson if we think they're both going to start, then I don't mind that if the two transfers both are good. But if it's just one transfer alone, then I don't think it's a massive use of a 4-point hit. The other thing, of course, it depends on captaincy. If you wanted to bring in Saka and captain him because you're chasing rank, for example, then yes, that could be worth a -4 if you start to include captaincy. But generally, if you're uncertain, hits on the final day doesn't really work unless you're really targeting a specific fixture that looks great and you know a player is going to start. So just going back and having a look at my team. Yeah, so we're going to wait until the deadline. There's no beating about the bush with that. We're going to wait and see if we get news on anything. If my front seven all start, I think I will do Munoz to a defender. It's not exciting. It doesn't feel great for Game Week 38, but I think my front seven is pretty strong. If one of my midfielders was to get benched, if Saka or De Bruyne, who feel like the biggest risk, then Jared Bowen would be the number one option I would go to, just because he's the biggest threat to my rank, and he would be the one that I would look at, that if I can protect against that, I would definitely do that. Now, in theory, I could look at it and go, even if we aren't certain De Bruyne is going to start, De Bruyne to Bowen could still be a good transfer. And if you're looking for something a little bit different to do, selling De Bruyne for Jared Bowen is something that I would consider. So if De Bruyne or Saka would get benched, I would go and buy Jared Bowen. If not, Munoz to someone like a Kirkes, a Livramento, or a Ben White, depending on the Sleeper injury, is probably what I look at. If one of my forwards were not going to play, then I would probably do Ismaila Sarr out and go and buy Kluivert again at home to Leicester as well. I don't think I'm going to take a -4. We just spoke about hits not massively being worth it. If Saka and De Bruyne both got benched, I would probably buy Bowen and I probably would just start Ismaila Sarr and I would be starting double Palace away at Liverpool. I might end up with a Forest defender in my starting lineup, but let's wait and see. So we need to wait really. Let's see how the games go on Monday and Tuesday as well. Kevin De Bruyne feels like a big one that I need to look out for in Game Week 38. Is he going to start and is he a good option as well? Because in the FA Cup, he did create some chances, but he did also play quite deep as well. So yeah, we're going to probably hold on thinking about my team too much. We will have videos over the course of the week looking at a free hit sort of wildcard draft, free hit draft. We'll have a look at players to buy depending on if you're protecting, if you're chasing. We will do all the usual videos, but then we will make all the final decisions probably on the deadline stream on Sunday. I'm not going to lie about that. Anyway, we'll wrap it up there. There will be videos throughout the course of the week. So if you do have questions, please do drop in the comment section down below. I'll answer some there. And of course, I'll look at them to make sure they're included and answered in the videos later on this week as well. 2,000 likes is the aim. If you have enjoyed the content throughout the season, massively appreciate it. Please make sure you're subscribed because we'll be back again next season to do it all over again. There is no doubt about that. But thank you all for your support. If you want to drop a like on this video, 2,000 is the aim. Subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll be back again very soon.